Hello again and welcome to the 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Alex Smith for sending in some updated pictures of his Valhallan 812th The Frostbite Division. Absolutely fantastic paint scheme and overall theme for the army that Alex has got going here. He has sent some pictures in before, but this is an update of how things are going. And I can say that that I am very, very impressed, and the Emperor is most pleased with your commitment to the Guard. So thank you very much for sending those pictures in. Absolutely fantastic. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos or just want to share, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. For a while now, many subscribers, many commenters have said, Mordian Glory, we want you to start taking a close look at Forgeworld and Forgeworld units. And at first I was a little resistant to this because I'm an old guard, I'm a long beard, and I come from an age where Forgeworld was pretty much banned, which sounds crazy, but it was only in the last 5 years. Only really since 8th, to be honest, it's only since 8th edition really dropped, where Forgeworld has been allowed in the mainstream. And we're talking tournaments and loads of other stuff. There's been the occasional tournament which allowed you to take one Forgeworld unit or something like that, but by and large, in the UK scene at least, Forgeworld was a bit of a taboo subject and was generally reserved for things like fun apocalypse games. However, I must move with the times, and I have to accept now that Forgeworld is pretty much part of the mainstream. It's now the tides have shifted, and being anti-Forgeworld now puts you in a minority rather than a majority. And people use Forgeworld all the time. The reason for this is most Forgeworld things aren't great. And they don't seem to be getting updated as much as the Codex stuff. But you know, it seems that a lot of Forgeworld stuff has been brought in line with, in terms of power, with the regular Codex stuff. There's always exceptions, and Forgeworld, I would say, is generally still quite powerful, but not the ridiculousness it has been in the past. I mean, hell, we've got. You know, I come from an age when you could only get Bane Blades from the Imperial Armour books. And now, look, they're in the main codex. Oh, what a time to be alive. And, you know, like I said, you see Forgeworld all the time. You see Forgeworld Knights. You see Leviathan Relic Dreadnoughts all over the place. You know, what competitive Chaos list isn't running a Leviathan Dread these days? You know, for example. You've got the Forgeworld bullshit Custody Grav Tank. Yeah, people are starting to put restrictions on those, but still, they exist. They get used in tournaments all the time. So, generally speaking, now it's a rare occurrence where you come across a tournament which restricts Forgeworld. And now you tend to find that it's allowed more often than not. I mean, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it is allowed unrestrictedly in ITC. But I could be wrong. I've been out of the ITC game for a few months now. If anyone knows, could they put that down in the comments below? That would be great. So, preamble over, introduction over. What I'm saying, guys, in a long roundabout way, is I will now be taking much closer looks at Forgeworld units, and I have some significant plans to include Forgeworld units within my army. Watch this space. The Great Mordian Restoration Project is underway. The vaults to the armory have been thrown open, and let's see if we can start cranking out some crazy Forgeworld. Let's see if we can use every tool at our disposal. So, kind of a very important channel announcement there, and to start off with this sort of commitment, we're going to take a look at some Forgeworld Leman Russes. Now, I've already covered things like the Conqueror, the Leman Russ Conqueror, which is an absolutely fantastic tank. It's not the be all and end all. And when I first came across the Conqueror, I thought it was just Forgeworld bullshit, and it was by far and away the best tank going. Now I actually think it is decently pointed, because there's been many situations when The range, the shorter range has screwed me, and the coaxial range has screwed me. So there you go. But look, we've already covered the Conqueror before. What we're going to look at today is the Forgeworld Vanquishers. Now, there's a really, really strong case to be made for taking Forgeworld Vanquishers. As we all know, the regular Codex Vanquisher cannon is, to put it politely, a complete pile of shit. I mean, there are much worse terms one could use to describe it. Low strength for an anti-tank weapon. Low rate of fire. Very, very situational. And just no accuracy. You're hitting on 4s with basically a melter gun. No thank you. But the Forgeworld Vanquishers have a few tricks up their sleeves which make them definitely worth considering, and we're going to go over a couple now. What you have is what's called the Ryza pattern and the Stygies pattern, or Stygies, however you want to pronounce it. Now, these two are almost identical in every single way. There's a 2-point difference, with the Ryza pattern being 2 points more expensive. Now, what these vehicles get is very simple. They get a Vanquisher cannon, but they also get a coaxial storm bolter if you take the Stygies pattern, like the Conqueror. Or if you take the Ryza pattern for 2 points more, you get a coaxial heavy stubber, and that is very interesting. For those of you that don't know what the coaxial rule is, it's where if you shoot, it's like where you've got the main gun, and then fixed like next to it is a heavy stubber or storm bolter. And if you shoot the heavy stubber, if you shoot your coaxial weapon first at an enemy target, you don't even need to hit. You just need to shoot at them. Then the main gun, and only the main gun, gets to re-roll all hits. And that's not failed hits, that is all hits. So modifiers don't affect you. That means if you hit on 4s and someone's got a -1 to hit, normally you would re-roll and you'd only get to re-roll the 1s and 2s, because the 3s, 1s, 2s and 3s, you wouldn't get to re-roll the 4. But with coaxial, it's like Belisarius' Call's ability, where you can re-roll all hits. Modifiers don't affect it, which is great. So you're still -1 to hit, but you get to re-roll your 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the case of -1. So that's really good. That suddenly massively ups the accuracy of the Vanquisher, because it's able to re-roll all its hits. Now, I'm going to be honest. From this point on, I'm not really going to consider the Stygies pattern. Okay, it's got a coaxial storm bolter. You're going to have to move in order to get in range with it, and then you're going to start missing. It's just not worth it. The Vanquisher wants to be sitting back, slinging anti-tank shells. Okay, so from this point on, we're looking at the Ryza pattern, which has the coaxial heavy stubber, which means you have a 36-inch range bubble that you can threat range that you can then reroll all hits against with your main cannon. Okay, so from this point out, we're talking about Ryza pattern. Now, the second part of what makes this tank good, because really, being realistically now, some of you are going, that's great and all, but it's still only hitting on 4s. Oh, I got a 50-50 chance. Oh, okay. So yeah, true, but hold on a second, because let me hit you with some knowledge, which is, unlike the regular Vanquisher cannon, the Forgeworld one has a rule where if the model did not move this turn, add 1 to all hit rolls with this weapon during the shooting phase. In addition, roll 2 dice when inflicting damage with this weapon and discard the lowest result. So that means this thing's hitting on 3s. Rerolling all hits. Modifiers be damned. That is significant. There's no doubt about that. Because you get to fire this gun twice, remember. So you're firing 2 shots, hitting on 3s, re-rolling, and then, obviously, you got a wound. Now, that goes a long way to fixing the Vanquisher. Because I love the Vanquisher. I really do. I wish... if you guys remember me back in 7th edition, the Blood and Shadows campaign, in that campaign, I ran like Vanquishers exclusively because they were cool and they were good. And now they're not good. They're still cool. So this goes a long way to being able to include Vanquishers in your list. But I know some of you aren't convinced. I know some of you are not convinced. Okay? Because you're like, it's all well and good, but still, like, I'm paying 170 points for this. Yes, you are. You are paying 170 points. But consider this small point, which is these Ryza pattern Vanquishers are basically like tank commanders. Yeah, you can't pick your weapon option. You've got to go with that Vanquisher cannon. But you are hitting on threes like a tank commander. You are re-rolling all hits, which is more than what tank commanders can do. Even Cadian tank commanders, you know, staying still, only re-roll ones. And then when you start thinking about what about combining this with things like overlapping fields of fire, suddenly you've got these tanks which are hitting on twos, re-rolling everything. So what this lets you do is it kind of, you know, this is what opened my eyes to it. It kind of lets you get round the rule of three for tank commanders because you take Pask, you take 3 tank commanders, and then you can you can take these things. Now, taking a look at the Vanquisher cannon in a little bit more detail, you know, I'm obviously making a big sales pitch for the Vanquisher, but let's hit it with a dose of reality, which is it does struggle against many targets. It is not an anti-infantry weapon. Okay, it's not. It's not really an anti-Titan weapon. Because the strength 8, it only wounds on 4s. Now, there are mitigating ways to mitigate this by taking a look at things like old grudges. But, you know, this sounds crazy. Strength 8 doesn't really cut the mustard anymore, guys. We've got Chaos Knights coming soon. If any of you have seen the previews, we're looking at Toughness 9 Chaos Knights. Vanquisher cannons wounding those things on 5s. That ain't going to do it anymore. What the Vanquisher's very, very good at doing is killing tanks. Not super heavy units, not infantry, tanks. Because you then hit, especially the stat, because then you're winning on 3s, right? Think of things like hammerheads. Tau hammerheads are still very popular with Tau players. You've got Triple Riptide, you've got Storm Surge, but 4 hammerheads, because you take 3 and Long Strike, is still very popular. You know, there's a lot of vehicles out there which are making a bit of a comeback. I mean, you have things like Sisters of Battle. I know they're a rare sight, but their immolators are very point efficient. I mean, any Space Marine player worth his salt is going to be running some kind of Rhino and Razorback, surely. How many Chaos players rely on triple Laspred to up their anti-tank capabilities? A lot. A lot. Triple, well, it's quad Laspred these days. Significant amounts. What about Baby Knights? You know, a lot of people like to run themselves a few Helverins or Armatures. You know, they do. So it's great. What the Vanquisher is good at is it's very good at killing its intended target. It just struggles against anything else. So what do you guys think? Am I mad? Am I on to something? Please leave some comments below. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.